Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for tuning in. I hope you stay with me. This is what we're going to talk about today. Is so important. I'm going to talk about race, racism, and the solution to it. Now, I did a program on this already. If you miss it, that's okay. I'm going to catch you up really quick. In the early part of the year of the 2000, actually they started about 13 years before 2003. They began a project called the Human Genome Project. Now, you know, I don't have to go into all the problems of racism that goes on in the world and then it goes on in our country. You know all those things. But this story, the thing that I'm about to tell you, should have been the biggest story of the 21st century. This should have been broadcast 24 hours a day on all of the news channels and should still be being talked about every day because of how huge it is and how it affects the lives of so many people. I'm sitting in front of a news desk right here in the studio. It should have been broadcast from every news desk. We had here in the United States what was called the Human Genome Project. And the point of the project was to map for the first time the human gene. There were scientists working on it all over the world. Took them 13 years. A lot of people laughed at it, thought they didn't have a chance they could do it. But they actually did it. They completed it in April 2003. Now I'm going to say that again. They completed it April 2003. Think where we are now. And when they completed the project, they put out a report. And in the report, they found out that every human being, and now this is all over the world, every human being, it doesn't matter what country you come from, what tone your skin is, whether you're tall, short, round eyes, slant eyes, it doesn't matter. All that is meaningless. What they found out was this. Every human being on this planet, our genes are 99.9% identical. I'm going to say that again. Every human being, your genes, my genes, everybody's genes on this planet, our genes are 99.9% identical to one another. And when they put out the report, they said, we really need to stop using the word race. Listen to this. We need to stop using the word race because it's inaccurate. There are no races. There's just one race, the human race. You're in that race, I'm in that race, and every other person on this planet. We're all one race, the human race. Not only that, they said, we're actually all, not only are we all one race, we can all trace our ancestry back to the original man and original woman, and we are actually all cousins of one another. We're related. I'm related to you, you're related to me, you and I are cousins. I'm cousins to everybody in Africa, I'm cousins to everybody in China, I'm cousins to everybody in the Philippines, I'm cousins to everybody in the UK, you're their cousin, we're all cousins to each other. Now, this news of being of one race, it kind of was, when it happened, I remember when it happened, they kind of went on the air a little bit, they sort of talked about it and made it, like it was a few days story and then it kind of just faded away. Why? Why would something of such giant magnitude as that we are all one race, that there are no races, because just watch the news. I love to watch the news, I'm a big news guy. You're always hearing stuff about racial problems between the races, racial issues. What's the race? There are no races, ladies and gentlemen. There's just one race. How come we don't hear that in the media? How come that's now not part of just our everyday vocabulary? Now, I'm going to put the links on my website. You can, I don't have time on the program, but you can read the articles about it. You can and see what the different scientists have said about it because they write about it. the National Academy of Sciences. That's the very prestigious National Academy of Sciences. A number of their members got together and said, we need to form a board to come up with new words to use when we write our scientific journals and our scientific papers that we publish, so that we can find new words to use instead of race, because there are no more races. There are no races. There's only one race, the human race. That is massive. That is gigantic. Think how much in the world is determined by skin tone. Skin tone is meaningless. We're one race. In that we're all 99.9% exactly alike genetically. So that means that little tiny 0.1%, that little tiny 1.1%, that's where the skin tones are and the shape of our eyes. We all have the same chemicals, no matter what color your skin tone is, or what shape your eyes are, or how tall you are, how short you are. All those genetics are in every single one of us. And it's in that little 0.1%. Now I want to tell you one more thing. If you needed a heart transplant, listen to this. If you needed a heart transplant, there's actually in that little point, now remember we're 99.9% exactly identical, so we're one race. In that little tiny 0.1% difference, there's actually more difference in that little 0.1% between, let's say, a group of Africans who are of the same people group. They actually have a bigger difference in that little 0.1% between each other than somebody from that group and a person in Sweden. They're actually genetically closer. Think about that. A Swede is actually genetically closer to the African than the African group is to one another, or to the Swedes to one another. If somebody in Sweden needed a heart transplant, they would actually, the best match for their heart to get a heart transplant would be the person in Africa, not somebody else in Sweden. That's how close we are. We're cousins, folks. We're cousins. We are all related. Now, how come we're not all acting like that? And how come that's not the way it's reported in the news every day? And how come they don't talk about it every day in the news as though we're all cousins? Of course, this makes science very nervous. And I'll tell you why. Because once I found this out, I started thinking, where did the whole concept then of race and racism come from? Modern race and racism. Well, I mean, where did the whole idea even start? Who came up with the idea of racism? So I began to do research, and I'm going to tell you where racism started. As soon as I say it, you're going to go, of course. Modern racism began with Charles Darwin and his theory of evolution. That's where modern racism began. When Darwin put out his book, it was 1859, Origin of the Species. The world of academia just bought it. Now, there were some scientists, even prominent scientists, who thought it was just a joke, actually laughed at his theory. Some of them wrote papers and actually said that they physically fell on the floor and laughed when they read it. It was so ridiculous. But most of the academic world absolutely just jumped on it and bought it. And there's a reason for that. And these are the big universities. I'm talking about Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Yale, all the major universities. They just jumped on it. And there was a reason they jumped on it. Because up till then, if there was ever a dispute between science and the Bible, science and the church, the Bible always trumped science. The Bible always trumped what science said. So if there was a dispute, the Bible always was the one that they went with. When Darwin came along and wrote his theory of evolution and put out the book, first thing he put in there was, of course, there is no God. No God. This is the theory of evolution. I'm going to do it really quickly. There is no God. We're here on the earth. Not we, the earth is here. We're not here yet, but the earth is here. There's just water. There's some carbon, some graphene. There's some molecules. There's no life, no God. No one's directing anything. There's nothing directing anything. There's no directors, no beings, just the earth, water, some molecules. That's it. And somehow, and Darwin had no clue how, in fact, to this day, there isn't a scientist on this planet, ladies and gentlemen, and I want you to listen to this, there's not a scientist on this planet that can explain how we went from no life to life. Nobody can explain it. Nobody. Not a single scientist. But this is the theory. The theory is, that in somehow the molecules and the pools and the lightning and just by some random, pure, accidental chance, a single cell, a simple single cell was formed, came to life. Again, there's not a single scientist on this planet that can explain how that happened. Now, I'm going to talk about that for a second. There's a gentleman, his name is Professor James Tour. He's a professor at Rice University in Houston. He's not just a normal scientist, he's like a super scientist. He's a professor of about 4 different things. He builds synthetic molecules. That's what his team does. They actually build molecules. They don't go buy a molecule kit. They actually make them from scratch. There's only a few people in the world that know how to build synthetic molecules. He and his team know how. And they've invented some amazing things that have to do with medical and energy, and they're just an amazing team. So he got up and he sent out a letter to all of his colleagues worldwide in academia. He said, I just want to let everybody, all my academic friends, all my professor friends know, I don't have a clue how we could have went from no life to life. I don't understand it. And if anybody, because of what I do building molecules, if anybody should understand how evolution and how that works, I should understand it, but I don't understand it. I don't see how it could be done. I don't see how it can go from no life to life. There's no way it could be done chemically that I could possibly explain. But if anybody in the world could explain it to me, will you please come, sit down, I'll buy you lunch, I won't say a word, and you can teach me and tell me how it works. I won't even interrupt you. The only time I'll stop you is if you say something I don't understand, then I'll ask you to explain it to me. Because I just want to learn, because it just can't happen. I don't see, as far as I'm concerned, it can't happen. But if you know how it works, please come and explain it. He put out that letter a number of years ago. To this day, not a single person has ever come and tried to explain to him how it works. But, and I want you to hear this is really important. All kinds of people, members of the National Academy of Sciences, Nobel Prize winning scientists have come up to him privately, called him either on the phone or they saw him at a conference. They would take him aside privately and say, now look, you can never use my name. You can never say, I told you this. You can never say, we even had this talk. You can't say, I was the one that told you. But you know what? You're absolutely right. There's no chance. There's no way. I cannot understand it. I cannot explain it. There's no explanation of how we could go from no life to life. It can't be done. No, it just can't be done. Now, these are the biggest scientists in the world coming to him and telling him he's right. But they can't do it publicly. Now, the reason they can't do it publicly, of course, is if they do it publicly, then like him, they get attacked because he's been attacked for his position, coming out and saying, look, folks, it can't be done. It can't be done. So I wanted you to know that there isn't a scientist in this world. And so if you go to school, by the way, depending on your age, if you're at school and you ask the question of your professor, well, how did we go from no life to life? And they say something like, oh, they got that all worked out. Let me just tell you, according to Dr. Tour, they don't have that all worked out. Nobody's got it all worked out. Nobody in the world. It's interesting. I'm going to tell you a story he said really quickly. He was over in Israel. He was with a professor over in Israel, and the professor was a specialist on the ear, the human ear. So they were looking at the ear. And so while they were doing it, he asked the professor, he says, Professor, do you understand this whole ear thing? Like, how did that happen? How could an ear come to be? The professor stopped and said, Jim, we all, of course, believe in evolution, but none of us have a clue how it happened. I love that professor. I love that professor's candor. Yeah, we all believe in it, but we don't have a clue how it works. The reason they don't have a clue how it works is because it doesn't work. And when they did the Human Genome Project and found out that we were 99.9% exactly alike and we're all one race, it blew a gigantic hole in the theory of evolution. But Darwin's theory was, you heard, okay, let me go quickly again, that somehow we, just by a random chance, life, a simple cell was formed. And then that cell, over millions of years, finally it kept developing and developing until it developed until it could crawl out of the little pool of the water. And then over millions of years, it turned into another species. And over millions of years, it turned into other species. I'm going through it real quick. And finally, there were mammals, and of course, some species were dying out, and new ones were evolving. And finally, they got to apes and chimpanzees and orangutans, and from them, humans came. By the way, the theory was, and I want you to hear this, if you have dark skin, the theory was you came from gorillas. Gorillas are the strongest but less intelligent of the primates. If you were Asian, you came from orangutans. And if you were light-skinned, Caucasian, you evolved from chimpanzees because they're the most intelligent of all the primates. Wonderful, isn't it? Theory. Now, from that, it wasn't just Darwin. His cousin, he invented the word eugenics. When he heard his cousin's theory, he took it, he just congratulated, he said, "This is awesome. You found the answer. You found the answer." So he and another friend of his took that theory, and they began what we've heard about eugenics. Now, I don't know if you've ever studied eugenics, but eugenics is like one of the worst. It's the worst medical experiment that's ever happened to the human race. Millions of people died because of eugenics. Eugenics was that there were superior and inferior races. Now, some people said Darwin didn't believe in that, but Darwin, wrote actually a second book, not just The Origin of Species. He wrote a book called The Descent of Man. And in the second volume of The Descent of Man, he praised his cousin, praised it. And the other gentleman who was a businessman, who came up actually with the term survival of the fittest, he used it in business, then he started applying it to people and superior races and inferior races. Darwin praised him as one of the greatest thinkers of our time. Now, as that theory developed and as it began, it went into the universities, and then it seeped itself out into the world and into the schools and was taught in the schools. Terrible things happened. They enslaved people. You know what happened. Because of racism and the idea of superior and inferior races, people were enslaved. They used to hunt down people and kill them because they thought they were part human and part ape, and then they would dissect them. Terrible things happened in the name of eugenics. All the way up to World War II, where of course, what happened with the Nazis and how they did the Holocaust, based on, partially, the research done in eugenics, because all he was doing was Well, there's this master race, there's a superior race, so we just need to get rid of the races that are lower and less and not quite human, because they could, they could mess up our higher superior race, and we don't want them intermingling, so we just kill them all off, and then that way the world will be safe. We'll just have the superior race, and we'll go on from there. And because of the Holocaust, that's when eugenics became so incredibly unpopular. That's when eugenics went completely out of fashion. It became almost like a swear word, and people now hate eugenics. But the concept did not go away, and there's people to this day who believe it and push it. They just do it under a different name. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not the only lie. I'm going to tell you about another lie. You've probably heard about this, but I'm going to show you there's more than one lie. And by the way, I could spend my whole life hating Darwin. I could spend my whole life going, what an idiot you were, Darwin, and Sir John Galton, and all the other, you guys are just, I could hate you guys for what you did, for the millions of people that suffered because of your idiotic theory. But then, you know what, we can't do that. Because in actuality, it's the enemy, there's an enemy to the human race. He hates our guts. He hates you, he hates me, he hates all of us. And he's the one that puts the ideas like this in people's minds. He's the one that puts those ideas in people's minds. Now, he puts them in a lot of people's minds and nothing ever comes of them, but Darwin wrote it down and people bought into it. But there was another lie. Did you ever think about this? Why in the world did communism ever even get started? Karl Marx wrote a book. And from Marxism, people began to believe it. They said, oh, what a great theory. There's these rich people, they've got all our money. Let's go take the money. That's our money. It doesn't belong to them. It belongs to us. It belongs to all the people. We'll all share. We'll all be equal. We'll all be just alike. And we'll love one another. And we'll just equally work together. We'll take care of each other. And that was the way they sold it. And people joined into the group. And they went and they had a revolution. And they took over. And you saw what happened in Russia. Between Russia and in China, over 100 million people were killed by their own governments. They killed their own people. They believed there was no God. They were pure revolutionists. So there's no problem killing the people. They're just animals after all. We're all just animals, according to the theory. Why would people believe that lie? What would make people go and buy such a lie? What would make people buy the evolutionary lie? I'll tell you why. All of us, ladies and gentlemen, are in a search. Now listen to this, because this is going to maybe shock you for a moment. All of us are in a search to be somebody. All of us want to be valuable, want to feel like we're valuable, want to feel that we have worth, want to feel that we're not just some person in this giant, I'm here in Southern California. There's 18 million people under the signal of this channel you're watching here in Southern California. You could sit here in California and go, I'm sitting here in the middle of 18 million people. Who am I? Everybody wants to be somebody, feel like they have worth. So the enemy, who hates us all and hates the human race, brings lies to people's minds to try to tell them you're nobody, you're nothing. But if you'll do this, if you'll just follow this theory, if you'll just join this group, you'll be somebody. Why do the people join into the communist thing? Why do they join that movement and have the revolution? It's because, first of all, when you join, you're part of the group. You feel like you are somebody. Look, I'm part of the big group. We're all together now. We're a group and we're going to go and take all our money back. And we have meetings and we have rallies and we march down the street and see, I'm somebody. I'm part of the revolution that's going to change the world, and we're going to have a great, wonderful world where everybody just loves everybody, so you feel like you're somebody. That's the attraction. Think about evolution. Boy, talk about something easy to sell. You didn't have to do anything. All you had to do was be born with the right tone of skin, and you're somebody. You could have nothing as far as financially. You could have no money. You could have no jewels. You couldn't own no houses, no land. You could just be a pauper. But you could look down at your skin and see that your skin tone was the skin tone of Darwin. Because, of course, Darwin and his cousin, just being that they were light-skinned, the superior race was the light-skinned people, and then the darker your skin was, the more inferior the races were. So you could look down your skin, and you could look at a guy over there, and he could be a dark-skinned person, but even if he had houses and had a lot of money, you could say, well, at least I'm not him, because I'm light-skinned. What a lie. I am so glad that after that finally in the year 2003 April, they came up after 13 years of hard research, and this is not theories, ladies and gentlemen, hard science, that there are no races. It's all lies. We're one race. Those lies came from the enemy. He's the one behind the lies. Now I'm almost out of time. I'm going to continue on with this next week, and I'm going to talk to you more about the lies a little bit. And then I'm going to talk to you about what God says you are. And I'm going to talk to you about how you are actually priceless from what God has said that you are. God said we were created in His image. We were created in His likeness. He made us a brand new creation, a creation that had never existed before. That's who we are. He made humanity in His image and His likeness. That's who we really are. I'm going to talk to you about that next week, and I'm going to tell you why we don't have to believe those lies ever again. See you next week. Ladies and gentlemen, I would love to hear from you. You can send me a text or an email to michael@michaeldalton.com, or you can call the 800 number that you see on the screen. You can also just go on our website, click on the Contact Us page, and from right there you can send us a message. You can also write to us at the address that's on the screen. I'd love to hear from you, and thanks for watching. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to walk in freedom. I want you to listen to this. This is a universal principle. To the degree that you believe lies and act on lies is the degree that you live in bondage, depression, fear. But to the degree that you know the truth and act on the truth is to the degree that you walk in freedom.